Welcome in, everyone. Cassie Soto here with you as we rate the 2021 draft class for the Raiders now that the season has come to an end. Here to help us break down the player performances is NFL writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Adam Hill. Adam, the Raiders went ahead and picked up 7 players in the 2021 NFL draft, and some of them were hits, but some of them were misses. So let's go ahead and break it down now, and let's switch things up, though, and start at the end of the draft for the Raiders. This one should be pretty easy, starting with Raiders' 7th round pick in center Jimmy Morrissey. He's no longer with the team. What do you think didn't pan out there for Jimmy Morrissey?
Well, that was just time and opportunity, right? I mean, he wasn't really given an opportunity from the beginning of the season. He was on the practice squad, and there was some optimism about him as a player, and maybe that was with good reason, because while this will go down as a miss for the Raiders, maybe it wasn't a miss overall. Jimmy Morrissey was signed off the practice squad to Houston. He did start 4 games for Houston, play the entire way in all 4 of those games for the Texans, and I think they're pretty optimistic about his future. So that might have been a decent pick. Just didn't work out for the Raiders. They didn't have room on the roster for him at the time, and maybe they could have kept him around to add to their depth a little bit because he looks like he might be a good player.
Well, moving on now to the Raiders' 5th round pick in cornerback Nate Hobbs. This was a guy who got a lot of playing time. He talked about taking advantage of opportunities there. He was even named to Pro Football Focus's all-rookie team. What do you think of Nate Hobbs' performance this season?
Well, if we're going to stick with, our baseball analogy of swings and misses or hits or however we're going to do this, Nate Hobbs is a home run. I mean, in fact, he may even be a grand slam. To get him where they got him, I know they thought he'd have, some good physicality coming into the league. They thought he was a mature player, and they were right about all of that. And they also may have short sold him a little bit just as a natural talent, because he was out there on the field from the beginning and playing at a very high level. Clearly one of the best secondary players around the NFL in terms of rookies, and to get him in the 5th round was a tremendous pick for the Raiders. And this is a guy that looks like he's going to be a good player for a long time.
Well, up next is safety Tyree Gillespie, the solo 4th round pick for the Raiders. This guy only saw action in a handful of games, so I'm sure the jury is still out on Tyree Gillespie.
Yeah, I think we're going to go incomplete, maybe in a couple of spots here, but certainly with Tyree Gillespie, because he's a guy that the team is pretty optimistic about. They have some high hopes for him going forward in the future. We haven't really seen it out on the field yet, except for spots here and there. But I certainly wouldn't write him off at this point. And I think if you ask the Raiders, they're much more high on him than they would be low on him right now. They are looking at him as a guy that could develop into the future, be a key piece in that secondary, and certainly contribute on special teams sooner rather than later. So he's a guy I think they're still excited about. We'll go incomplete on him, but for a 4th round pick, probably a pretty good selection.
Well, moving on to the 3rd round picks now, we've got linebacker Diablo, the Raiders' 80th overall pick. Again, a guy who really progressed, especially in the month of December and as the season went on.
Yeah, I think, early in the year it was tough to get on the field a little bit, battling through some injuries, and didn't really get all the reps that he may have needed early on in the season. But as you said, down the stretch, he came alive, was a very key contributor for the defense, a guy that they were counting on, a guy that some of the older players were really raving about, how impressed they were with him and his development. So we saw it on the field more than we saw with some of these other guys. He was able to play long stretches, and man, in key parts of the season, Diablo was out there on the field. So I think, there's some size, there's some athleticism to him that they really enjoy. And just as a pure football player, he has some really strong instincts. So kind of learning a bit of a new position, kind of figuring out where he fits in the NFL. But so far, so good for Diablo. Another pretty good pick for the Raiders in late rounds.
Well, let's close out the 3rd round now, Adam, with the 79th overall pick for the Raiders in defensive end Malcolm Cootes. This guy recorded a sack in his NFL debut and then recorded another one after that. Again, a guy who stepped up when his number was called for the Raiders.
Yeah, and this is kind of a, maybe getting lost in the numbers a little bit, because the Raiders were very good on the defensive line. Malcolm Cootes is another guy that just brings a lot of talent. And, from day one, they talked about his ability to get to the quarterback. He's got all the moves, all the understanding of how to rush the quarterback. And it looks like he can do that. It might be as a pass rush specialist for the first couple of years in his career as he figures it out. But I think he has the ability to be even more than that on the defensive end, maybe a 3-down type defensive end. But for right now, looks like his role is just going to be maybe to get out there in passing situations and just get after the quarterback he can do that. And I think, if the team wasn't so good at that position, maybe he would have seen a lot more action this year. And eventually, maybe 2 years down the road, maybe he's even better and could be a 3-down defensive end. Maybe some of the similar kind of trajectory as Max Crosby on the other side.
Well, down to the final two here, Adam. With the 43rd overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Raiders selected safety Trayvon Martin. He joins Nate Hobbs in being named to PFF's All-Rookie team. 55 total tackles, 6 passes defended, and an interception for the rookie this year, Adam.
Well, listen, we don't always get these right. But I do remember sitting here with you. I think it was like 9 years ago when this draft actually happened. Maybe it was only like 9 months, but it seems like forever ago. When we did our recap of the draft, we said, hey, if you take Trayvon Martin in the first round, nobody's batting an eye. You get him all the way in the middle of the second round. They had to trade up to do that, but they take a guy who had a first-round grade from a lot of different people. A lot of people believe not only could he step in right away in the NFL, but would certainly be able to step in right away with the scheme that the Raiders played defensively, and that turned out to be true. I mean, he was day one starter, a guy who never really lost his spot, was there the whole year, was an impact player for this team. You never had to worry about him. I think that was the biggest thing for this defense. He wasn't out there making rookie mistakes. He was solid from the beginning, and that's why a lot of people had him as a first-round grade. He falls to the second round for the Raiders. Great pick for them, and a good job. And I think, we have one player to talk about left, Cassie, and I'll let you set that up. But I think if Trayvon Martin was the first-round pick, a lot of people would have looked at this draft very, very differently for the Raiders.
All right, so you're saying the first-round pick for the Raiders didn't pan out, Adam?
I mean, can we just end this now?
Yeah. Hold on, let me toss it up here. I wrote this intro and everything. We got to get to it. With the 17th overall pick, of course, the Raiders selected Alex Leatherwood, the right tackle of the future for this Raiders team. Adam, things did not pan out here with Alex Leatherwood. He ended up being one of the most penalized players in the NFL this season. They had to switch his position. What is your grade here on Alex Leatherwood?
Well, I want to make it clear that I want to grade the Raiders and not Alex Leatherwood here. And I'll explain why. It's because it's the Raiders' fault for taking him where they took him. Very, very few, if any, draft analysts out there and really people we talked to around the league had him rated as a first-round pick. Why? Because a lot of people thought he'd have trouble playing tackle in the NFL and he might have to move to guard, and that would make him probably not a first-round value. Well, that's exactly what had to happen. The Raiders had to admit that he was probably more suited to play guard than he was tackle at this point in his career. So that's on the Raiders. That's not on Alex Leatherwood. And Alex Leatherwood probably was a guy who gets picked in the second, maybe even third round. You bring him in, you develop him, let him play guard for a couple of years, maybe move him to tackle at some point, and don't put all this pressure on him to be a first-round pick at tackle where he has to step in and go against these explosive pass rushers every single game. So the Raiders put him in a tough position from the start. He failed miserably in those first couple of games. But again, that's on them, not on him. So I want to be clear about that. Now, Alex Leatherwood does move to guard. And listen, we're kind of making light of it a little bit, but there was times in the season where he looked really, really comfortable at guard. Especially in the run game, there was times where he was able to get out and pull and show that athleticism a little bit. He was able to fire off the line of scrimmage. He looked good in the run game at times. It wasn't consistent enough. It wasn't always, but there was times where he looked okay. So I think there is things you can kind of hang your hat on a little bit. He's got to clean up the penalties. No question about that. You mentioned. But at some point, maybe he can move back to tackle. But for right now, if he continues to develop as a guard, he's probably never going to justify that first-round pick. He's probably never going to live up to that hype. But at least he could be a serviceable player. Probably not what you want out of your first-round pick, but not a complete and total disaster at the NFL level. This is on the Raiders. This is not on Alex Leatherwood, but you've got to go D minus. I think that's probably fair.
Well, there you have it, your grades on the Raiders 2021 draft class. He is Adam Hill. I'm Cassie Soto. For more Raiders grades, head on over to vegasnation.com.